The mailman doesn't deliver on a Sunday.
If you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Anthony for three. Bang! J.R. Smith! We just saw men fly. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Cleveland! This is for you!
All right, what's up, and welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I am Chris Nambu, and with me every time is Ronan Gaine. Now letting me do an intro today. Today's a good day. Yesterday we had the NC tournament, first day of that. We're going to talk about some Harden. We're going to talk about stuff we're going around the league. But first, everybody, thank you for listening to us today. Happy to have you with us. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to subscribe. Throw us a like. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we're wrong about. We're wrong about a lot of things today and tomorrow and last week. But unless you let us know, we're going to keep getting away with it. But first and foremost, Ronan, how are we doing today? Randall didn't give you a good night. Hopefully you got a good rest after that. I got a good rest after watching the Chicago Bulls lose. Again, I'm used to it. It's normal. How are we doing?
I'm okay. I was happy to see at least Brunson had a kind of his welcome to the season performance last night. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the win, but at least we lost to the Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo book, so I can accept it a little bit more. But yeah, it still hurts, and the way Randall's playing at the moment definitely has me a bit worried.
Listen, we lost to Cam Thomas and the Nets, one of the best powerhouses in offense in the league. You were pointing out to me earlier how we just had that complete. I don't know if it's we or me had that completely flipped. What did I say? They're going to be a top 5 defensive team. Right now, they're a bottom 5 defensive team. I don't know what to make of basketball anymore. There are a lot of weird things. We'll get through them today. I say we get through the in-season tournament. What was the biggest thing you saw there?
Just that it was great for the league as a whole. Don't get me wrong, I was looking at those games last night and just thinking them as normal regular season games outside of the look of the courts.
Yeah.
So like until it gets to the knockouts, I'm just going to be viewing these as regular season games, really. But obviously they got off to a great start because there was really a lot of great games, a lot of close battles that went down to the wire, a lot of big time matchups, stars going against each other. I think the main one was obviously the OKC Golden State Warriors game. Really high scoring, 141 to 139. And OKC did that without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yep.
But then the outrageous finish to it. Clear basket interference, but apparently because Josh Giddey grabbed the net, that changes the rule or something ridiculous like that.
I have no idea. That was the biggest thing. That honestly ruined the night, I feel like. It was such a good game to see, you know. This is an opportunity for teams like this. This is an opportunity for the Thunder to, make themselves known. It's not technically just a regular season game, and they had that. And then this should have went to overtime. This should have been a great finish. But I don't understand the nuance of that rule. That we've seen that happen time and time again. If someone touches the basket, going on a tip-in, how many teams have we seen over the years lose a ridiculous game like that? But I don't know. Is the NBA rigged? Who knows? We're not even 5 minutes in. We're getting into an NBA rigged conversation. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be. It could be something like that. I mean, it's one of those where you're like, imagine that was just a normal time. Something like that happened, and it would have just been called, and they would have just ran it back. There would have been no problems with it. And then it gets down to that clutch moment, and I don't know. Like people are saying, apparently Giddey touching the net is what changed the call. I don't know what the way it's actually written down in the rules, but yeah, looking at it from my perspective, and obviously always wanting the Warriors to fail, I wanted that to be basket interference.
We're not refs. The refs clearly looked at it. Sure, I'm going to trust the refs made the right call. But if Giddey touched it to begin with, that doesn't automatically make it a basket. That would be technical foul. You'd be shooting, and then you'd offset it because either Draymond touched the basket or he tapped the ball right above the cup. They're like at the end of the day, maybe that's Steph taking free throws instead of that. But the fact that it just counted, that was a weird thing for me. But Lu Dort had a great game. OKC had a fantastic game against the Warriors.
Chet looked great again.
What's that?
Chet looked great again.
Dude, Chet. We'll get into some of these guys just going across the league, but Chet continues to look like as good as advertised, if not better, defensively, and him being a connecting piece on the offensive end. Like he's going to be one of the best defensive players in the NBA for a decade if he stays healthy. He looks really good. And then the Warriors, I mean, just thinking about how they'll be for the rest of the season off of some of the games you've seen, they look good in this tournament as well. We should get through the Knicks. We should get through another update for you on Julius Randle. What's going on there? How are we feeling so far?
Yeah, I mean, like it's the struggles have continued. The one bit of solace you can take from it is at least he's still contributing in terms of rebounds, and his assist numbers have been pretty solid, probably an upgrade on what he's usually at. But yeah, the shooting as a whole is pretty horrible to watch. Pretty much every game so far. Last night was another real bad one, 5 of 20 from the field, and just got down the stretch when they started giving him the ball. He made a couple of baskets. Then in the last couple of plays, he had the ball and he went up against Giannis and went up against Brook Lopez, and he just didn't have a chance, which very few people in this league do when you're going one-on-one with those guys. But in those situations, the Knicks went to that back-to-back, and Julius Randle is in a stage at this moment where he's not the guy who's going to get that bucket. It was a bit of a strange finish for the Knicks, but again, Dame comes up super clutch. If you're going into the close of a game and it's tight with the Bucks, you're always going to have believe that they're going to be able to get that stop on the defensive end because of the likes of Lopez and Giannis, and you're going to have Dame on the other end to clean up. So it's a tough one to take, but I like the heart that the Knicks showed, and it's great to see they're still a battling team. But on the flip side, you're also kind of like the start of the season has just really highlighted that they're good, but they're just not good enough.
Yeah, there's this zone that you notice Julius Randle get into where there will be like a 5-minute period where he will just look at the rim and he's just not going to move the ball. And then there's one sequence near the end of the game where he's going one-on-one in the post. There's just nothing going on around it. It's just him against the world, misses a shot, somehow gets a rebound. Then he's on the perimeter, and there's just no thought to swing the ball. And I get he took an open three, but when you're shooting that bad, it's just he's a flawed player, and we love him when he's doing his thing. And it really hurts to see him playing like this. But where do you go from there? I mean, it's early in the season. You can't move away from him. And this is what the Knicks are built to do. It feels like there's not going to be a lot of changes. You just have to hope he improves.
Yeah, no, that's all that it is really. It's just keep putting them in those situations and just hope that it turns back around. Obviously, like I was pointing out the last pod, like it's that worry that it's just not the incapable of doing it in back-to-back years. But also you like to hope that he had that off-season surgery, and hopefully it's just him getting back used to after that surgery and playing more games. He'll get that touch back.
Yeah. How do we feel about the Bucks right now?
They played better last night. They made more sense last night. They had Brook Lopez playing in the drop a lot more. And what happened? He got 8 freaking blocks. Yeah. He blocked 8 shots outside. He had 2 for the whole rest of the season. The defense was a lot more organized. Still a ways to go. I mean, you won't really get a judgment on them until we see Chris Middleton playing full minutes and seeing Dame and Giannis really get going in terms of the pick and roll. I think last night, obviously it changed down the clutch, but like up until like the last 2 minutes, I think Dame and Giannis combined had only shot like 21 shots combined, which just seems insane. Like, how is that the number for the star duo of this team? But they were knocking it down from 3, which is great. But I think the defensive adjustment they made last night was really smart, and that was Adrian Griffin probably trying to put his own stamp on it and then just accepting to go back the way things worked so well last year. Because their defense have been struggling, and it couldn't have just been all because of they lost Jrue Holiday. There had to be other elements too, and I think the Brook Lopez side of it was one element that they switched again last night, and it looked a lot better.
But it's not obviously all Damian Lillard's fault. Like, it's a little reductive and boring to put it to that, but I think Dame has been flat out awful defensively to start. Just like terrible, like targeted. The fact that Damian Lillard is targeted on screens all game long every time he's played, and the fact that the Bucks right now are the 27th best defense in the league is not a good sign for the future. And you just watch him die on screens. You really expect him to like fight a little bit harder on that, because all you need from him is just effort navigating screens there. Because you're not going to get Jrue Holiday, you're not going to get Javon Carter, which I don't know if financially that would have worked out for them to find a way to keep Javon Carter, but God, are they missing a guy like him just to give them some reprieve. Like Brooke Lopez, Giannis are going to have their hands full all season long trying to fix Dave's mistakes on the perimeter. And there's not a lot of help behind it. Like where do you go next in line in terms of main on-ball defenders? You don't have a very long list there on the Bucks right now. So I predicted, that we both predicted it was going to be difficult defensively to adjust to a life without Drew Holiday, but it's a pretty dramatic change right now and in their identity. Like if they're not going to be a bona fide top 5 defense, that's a really big change. And I think they're going to continue to struggle with that until they figure it out.
Yeah, no, it's been a pretty stark drop off. I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Obviously, still early days, so you hope they'll be able to pick it back up. But at the moment, yeah, it's definitely a little bit worrying that it's not just a top 5 back to like top 15. It's top 5 down to bottom 5, which is definitely a little bit more of a worry. But outside of that, I mean, the other games in the in-season tournament, obviously we know about your Bulls. That was just a tough game. It was a close one. It could have gone either way, really, the way the Bulls are playing at the moment. Pacers ultimately got the job done against the Cavs. The defense for the Pacers just proves to be still a massive issue for them. Obviously, they had a comfortable lead. The Cavs fought them all the way back. Luckily, the Pacers were able to make a few big shots down the stretch. The Cavs, obviously, they only had their full 5 out last night for the first time this season with Jared Allen and Garland and Mitchell and Mobley, and hopefully things will get better. But the first few games, watching them, they've struggled to get going. It's just been all about Donovan Mitchell. How many points can Donovan Mitchell score? And outside of that, they really have absolutely nothing. So hopefully now they're healthy, they can really get going again. The Pacers, like I was saying, they struggled defensively, like we saw against the Celtics. Miles Turner had a really great game last night, really won that game, and then Halliburton was able to step up for them in the clutch, so they were able to get the job done. But yeah, defense still a huge worry for the Pacers. And then of course the other dramatic one was the Grizzlies and the Blazers that ultimately went to overtime. We'll talk about the Grizzlies later, but just to say on that, I mean, they were up 10 with 3 minutes left. They were up 5 with 1 minute left, and they ultimately lose it in overtime, which is just really, really worrying. And then of course the Nuggets and the Mavs. I'm telling you, I'm getting really worried about these Nuggets. I mean, when they need a bucket, they get a bucket. When they need a stop, they get a stop. They try ridiculous things and they come off. I'm starting to get serious Golden State vibes off this team. Everything just goes for them. They have so much, and their size just absolutely destroyed the Mavs last night. I think it was 19 offensive rebounds, and that was basically the difference in the game.
I don't think the Nuggets are going anywhere, especially the way they're playing, like the focus that they're having on the defensive end, the chemistry that they continue to show. Like they're not in any sort of championship hangover at all. I mean, the Mavs for this season, I mean, that was their first loss this season. The Mavs have looked pretty good with Luka. We'll talk about Luka in a little bit, but great matchups. And going back to the Grizzlies, that was a really hard fought loss. The things that the Grizzlies doing all game, they're really getting up and down. They're playing fast. Jaren Jackson Jr. looked like, and this is one thing I think that's important to note. I think something that's going unnoticed is how bad Ayton has been. And Jaren Jackson Jr. should not look that much better than Ayton on the offense. Like he looked like another level of player. Like just Ayton was outclassed by Jaren Jackson Jr. And it's early in the season, so I think we're always like kind of taking things a little bit of grain of salt. But there's some things that you'd expect to be immediate change of scenery, immediate opportunity. And Ayton has not shifted at all as a player. He's regressed as a player. But who's come up, I mean, to my surprise, honestly, Shaedon Sharpe.
Yeah, looked unbelievable.
Shaedon Sharpe is
clutch for them last night. Yeah, great.
He's doing a lot on the ball. He's doing a lot shooting from the perimeter. He's just as fearless as he was as a rookie, getting to the rim, and he's showing a lot more body control. And I mean, he's going to eventually start getting a lot more calls, and his ability to get to the line once he still starts getting that respect that's going to be a difference, making him an all-star player. I mean, if he's able to continue to attack the rim like that, use his body, and defensively, it's still a work in progress, but he clearly has the physicality to do it, and that's just something he's going to adjust to. But Shaedon Sharpe is definitely he might be the guy in Portland if Scoot continues to take a little bit of time, and if Simons is taking kind of a 1A 1B role type of thing. But Shaedon Sharpe looks ready to take that next step. And the Grizzlies, man. Do we talk about the Grizzlies now?
No. We'll get into the Grizzlies later on. But let's have a little look around the league. What's catching your fancy across the league after we've had 2 weeks now of games?
Well, do we have to wait to talk about Wemby? Like,
no, let's jump in.
We have to have our weekly Wemby check-in. So I have serious and unserious questions with all these things around the league, especially because it's week 1. Is Victor Wembanyama a better all-around player than Kevin Durant?
Come on. In 2 games, maybe. maybe just 1 game, but he's not quite there yet. But
No.
The Spurs going 2-0 against those Suns was impressive, and especially that last game. Not just because he had the 38 points and had his career night, but because the Spurs really started to play through him, and they thrived playing that way.
Yep. I guess that was an unserious question. Serious question. Do the Spurs need to get Wemby a real point guard? Emphasis on need.
At this stage, I don't think it's that big of a worry. It might be something we look at in the future, but at the moment, I don't think it's a real notable gap for me.
Yeah, like my gut response to that, I was really kind of thinking hard about how badly they need a point guard. There's a lot of plays where, the lobs are not there. Sohan is not a dynamic playmaker. He's not going to make lobs off the dribble as well as a true point guard. He's not able to get in a pass into the post every time perfectly, like you would expect from point guard. When Trey Jones is on the floor, like, things looks very organized. I mean, the spacing isn't always perfect with him there, but it looks good. But when you look at the stats, actually, this is a funny part of it, and I think this speaks to how they pass as a team, because they're 3rd in total passes made, they're 3rd in assists, team assists per game, and they're right ahead of Golden State there, 5th in potential assists. They're getting looks. If you had to guess after Trey Jones, who do you think is leading the team in assists? The next 2-3 players.
Yes, is Wemby. Is Wemby one of them? No.
I'll give you a hint though. They're not guards. They're not guards.
Zach Collins, is it?
Zach Collins averaging 4. He's 3rd on the team. He's 4.6 assists per game. 2nd is Sohan. I mean, they're throwing him there. I mean, he's a solid playmaker. He makes good passes. He does what Pop wants him to do. He's just not the dynamic guy. But he's averaging 5.2 assists per game. Keldon Johnson, surprisingly, he's doing a solid job playmaking. He's really taken that step last year, doing it again here. And he's just been streaky shooting, but he's averaging 4.4 assists. Do they need a point guard if their system is meant to spread the ball out, is to move the ball, and not really have one guy who's leading? Maybe not. How about we jump over to the Celtics real quick?
Yeah, let's get in on that. Like that performance on what was it, Wednesday night? 155 points they put up against the Pacers, and not only that, they won it by 50 points, which is just absolutely insane. 4-0 start, 1st in offense, 6th in defense, still looking good on both ends. I'm going to be that dickhead right here. It's going too well, and I think injury is just around the corner to disrupt this. But I hope that doesn't happen.
Everyone knock on wood. I think that's got to be the sentiment of half Celtics Nation is, okay, when is this not going to look so good? You're just always waiting for the other shoe to drop. But, I mean, if you're an optimist, and you should be an optimist, because you're seeing what is a real product of, like, a perfectly set up offense. Like, this offense is constructed perfectly. The way that they are going to beat teams like that is going to be consistent. If you face a bad defense like the Pacers, they're gonna drop over 130 points a game. They are gonna be far and away the best offense in the league. They're gonna be far and away easily top 3. Maybe they're gonna still stay best defense in the league. But it is always that sentiment. My question is, though, could they beat the 2016 Golden State Warriors 24 game win streak to start the season this year?
Ooh, yeah. Well, that's an interesting one. I'm pretty sure I earmarked that they have the Nuggets on December the 1st. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's when they face them. That's probably the only one I'd really worry about them on.
That is the only one. And the funny thing is, game 24 to tie the record will be against the Golden State Warriors. But you're really hard pressed when you look up and down their schedule, like who could beat the Celtics here? And that kind of makes you think, how many games can they win? Is this a 62, 65? Is this a 70 win team?
I mean, healthy. I don't like they definitely have the potential to do it. Their ability on both ends of the floor, the star power that they have, they definitely can do it. If they stay healthy, I think, like we were saying before, I think it's a minimum of 60 wins this year, and it's definitely, I think you could get as high as 70. I think they could really push the barrier there.
I agree, absolutely. I want to ask you about Porzingis, Pingus. He has looked revamped. How good do you feel like is he a top blank power forward in this league? Top blank. What's the number?
I mean, in the system, I think he's definitely in the let's see, we say top 7.
Top 7?
Yeah. Just as an individual, I may like obviously there's guys you could put above him, but in terms of the fit he has in this team, that puts him in that conversation.
Let's do it this way: best pick and pop big in the league, top 1,
3, 2,
top 1 of 1.
Yeah.
I'd say Porzingis, he's the best pick and pop option in basketball right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Best shot blocker amongst 4s.
Yeah,
Him and Wemby.
Yeah.
And Wemby.
And the AD, if you count that.
AD, yes, AD. In terms of rolling to the rim, he's top 5 right now. And this is the biggest, most impressive thing. If you watch, he's so much more aggressive getting the rim. Right now, he's 5th in points per possession as a roll man. And he wasn't even close to top 10 last year. Don't even talk about the year before that. And he's really taken a leap there. Top 5, top 7, like he's shown himself. He's back. Porzingis is not just he's still good. Like this guy is crawling back to a star status. And at the end of the season, I don't know how far he will be to refurbishing that, but I mean he's definitely has an opportunity to do it here at Celtics. I want to jump to
yeah, for sure. It's great to see, to be honest. I obviously I always have a soft spot for Porzingis in my heart.
I know you do.
He was meant to be the next great thing for New York. Not quite that, but it's great to see him thriving in a team that's going to be really competitive.
How about his boy Luka? We got to talk Luka real quick. Quick update. He's right now leading the league in points per game. He's shooting 44% from 3. We always talked about what would happen if Luka started really getting consistent from 3. Do you want to know what he's shooting on step back 3s?
Something ridiculous, like 50, 55.
55.6% on step back 3s. He's scoring 1.2 points per possession on pick and rolls. He is cooking everybody in front of him. He's playing as good as he has. He's playing some defense. Is this the MVP year for Luka, and is he gonna steal it from Tatum?
Like I said before, obviously the start that the Mavs have made, like I said before, we both picked Tatum as our pick for MVP, but I also mentioned that if the Mavs can somehow get a top 4 seed in the West, then it's going to be Luka's trophy, because he is that star guy. I mean, watching him last week, I'm just sitting there like, this guy is the best watching basketball. So I think if Dallas can sustain this, obviously they've had a bright start, and then obviously they go up against the Nuggets on the road, which is always going to be tough, and they're handed their first loss. Let's see how they move on from that. But yeah, for the most part, like Luka's just been awesome, and like the sentiment remains, if the Mavs can somehow sustain this sort of run that they've been on and be in the top 4 of the West, then yeah, it's going to be Luka's trophy.
Yeah. What have you thought, real quick, of Derek Lively? He's a guy that we looked at in the rookie draft. Is he going to be someone who's going to make an impact maybe at the end of the year? You got to have him come along. But I think he's made his presence known. Is this the guy moving forward?
Hopefully, yeah. Obviously, last night, we didn't see him get a lot of minutes. He couldn't really handle it out on the floor quite as much last night when you're up against the big dog in Nikola Jokic and the size of that Nuggets team, which was a bit worrying. But in terms of what he's done, I think it's definitely the brightest spark that we've seen from a Dallas player, and in a position that they really need. So obviously, as we look into it, just getting stronger, being a better rebounder, and outside of that, what he's doing on the offensive end, I think is exactly what they need, exactly what they've been missing on. Just that question of now becoming that legit rim protector, getting stronger, and being a better rebounder. If he adds all that together, like, that is a genius, huge pickup for this Dallas team.
Yeah. I got to talk about my boy real quick, and then I'm done going around the league.
I will say one thing before you do that. Your Bulls screwed it so bad losing against Dallas. When you hold Luka Doncic to under 20 points and you don't win, like, that's so bad.
I think the Bulls are they're a dying star, no pun intended. You're seeing the implosion happen in front of you. You're seeing the light begin to flicker, and it's two guys that are really on the cut end of their good portions of their career. DeRozan and Vooch are right there. Vooch is probably last year. DeRozan, I don't know how many more you get out of him. And Levine is in such a seminal point of his career where is he going to end the highlights of his career on a team that is going, frankly, nowhere? Is Caruso going to end his, Caruso has to be the most wasted, amazing player that should be a championship level player. What he did with the Lakers, and imagine him on a Celtics team, imagine him on a 76ers team, imagine him on a contender in playoff basketball where moments matters. I mean, he does magic every night with what he does, and that is being wasted on the Bulls. And then you pair that with a constant drama of is Patrick Williams going to finally be good? And all this while Kobe White's actually finally turning into a good player on his own. And he's doing it on a dysfunctional team. There's so many reasons why this team needed to be ended. And just in terms of talking, and you put me on the soapbox, you mentioned the Bulls. I wasn't going to bring it up, but you opened the door and here we are. But this is such an important, I think, learning point of basketball is the business of it. And there are so many teams and you wonder why the dysfunction continues. And it all comes down to ownership. It all comes down to management. You have to trace back the money. You got to follow the money. Why are teams not figuring it out? The Kings did not figure things out for years. You follow the money, you follow the management, you follow the ownership, and that was always a problem. Bulls are always going to be that way. And this is just a symptom of it, just like it was 3 years ago, just like it was during the Baby Bulls era, and it will continue to be. So there you go.
Yeah.
We have to talk about a player that disappointed us last year, a player that had a lot of high hopes, a player that's confused people a lot, Scottie Barnes. Now, the Raptors have looked awful offensively at times. I mean, without Fred VanVleet, without real offense out there, without Nick Nurse, I don't know, without a lot of things, that offense does not look good. But who looks good is Scottie Barnes. I mean, he's like muscling. He plays muscling Giannis out of the way for layup, dunking over Embiid. He's like dream shaking mid-rangers. He's yelling at opposing benches. Like, he is having a moment right now. It's being lost in the noise of the Raptors just being kind of dysfunctional, dropping triple doubles. Right now he's shooting nearly 40% on threes, and he's upped his shot diet to almost 5 threes a game. And that's something he was not doing last year. And he looks confident doing. He's not questioning it. He looks confident getting in the middle of the floor, playmaking, playing the pick and roll. Like, he looks and feels like a different player. And you just got to look at his stats. When he's dropping right now over 20 points per game, 5 assists per game, 8 rebounds per game, 2 blocks per game. If that's where he's hanging out, that's company of your Lukas. That's company of your Giannis. That's company of your Jokic. No one else is putting out that sort of production across the board. Last year, it was just those 3. The year before that, you're extending that. Siakam had a great year like that. DeJounte Murray, that kind of broad production. And your boy Randall in his amazing year the other year. Like Scottie could be emerging, because I look at that stat line and that doesn't look unsustainable to me for a guy of his talent. what he brings to the floor, how he's constantly attacking boards and playmaking, and the way he's able to score if he's really starting to get confident from three. Is Scottie Barnes, if this is his production, does he look like an all-NBA player to you?
Yeah, I mean, if he sustains the levels that he's delivering on, and like it's that nice balance that he's still being able to up that scoring, but still have those assist numbers, delivering on the defensive end as well, and if the shooting can stay afloat, like that's huge, and that's him being more like that guy that came out of nowhere and won was Rookie of the Year, and that guy that the Raptors believe is the centerpiece for their future. Obviously, only early doors, but yeah, at this moment, he's looking like he's back on track, and he's looking confident, which is definitely a big thing for the Raptors and for Scottie Barnes himself.
Yeah, and the 2 blocks a game too. I think a lot of that has to do with Pirtle being there. You have an interior presence. You can play a little bit more weak side. He's not getting stuck on bigs. Like if he's defensively putting that out with a 1 steal a game as well. I'm pretty high on Scottie, and I think this is going to be all the more reason. I think we predicted Siakam was going to be the first to be traded this season. I think it's about time that they make room for Scottie and let Siakam go elsewhere, because the offense looks just janky. When Siakam's like the third option, it doesn't make sense out there.
Yeah. Let's go into our more in-depth stuff, our more sad things. I have to just take a big L here as we start to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah, I was so very wrong. Obviously, that injury to Steven Adams came after I said it, which has definitely hurting them a little bit, but not to this extent that they should be at. But yeah, I predicted the Grizzlies to be the number 1 seed in the West, and they have started the season 0-6. Yikes!
I don't think anyone would have predicted this. Like honestly, and this is how you should always treat the Grizzlies to be correct. Like just take my Grizzlies take and like relax by like 10 to 15%, and I think that's around normal. I think I'm usually overly high on the Grizzlies, and I think this is kind of the turning point. I think I overvalued the Grizzlies' ability to just kind of like the Heat, just pull guys out of their roster and make them very useful, make them really good NBA players, and just out of nowhere. But I mean, honestly, injury-wise and off-season wise, they just kind of ran out of those guys. I mean, losing Tyus Jones, that was huge. And the year losing Melton, and this offseason losing Dillon Brooks. I mean, Joe Cawley won about Dillon Brooks, and he was a huge part of why their defense was so fearsome. He was a huge part of, maybe on a night-to-night basis, he wasn't efficient, but he was taking shots, and he was able to score. And factor in Santi Aldama getting hurt, and then you have Adams not there. I mean, they're just so decimated that you couldn't have expected, getting production out of their young guys who are so unproven. I mean, that wouldn't have surprised me, but I think that was betting way too much on guys that are just not really yet NBA ready. My biggest point of disappointment, though, is, you're looking at the situation, and I really did, think maybe David Roddy will take a step. I don't think he's ready for that. He's really not. Maybe, Kennard will step up, but I definitely thought that you'd see Williams take a jump up. Mm-hmm. You thought Zaire Williams would do something. Dude, like Kennard shooting 12% from 3, so getting more shots. Zaire's getting less shots than Xavier Tillman and Derrick Rose and Marcus Smart. Like he has to be somebody who's making a step here, because you can't just rely on Desmond Bane to save you every night, because he can't do it himself. It's just impossible.
Yeah, no, obviously it's definitely worrying. I mean, that, like you're saying, Williams is a guy that you kind of felt had to really take a jump, especially with the absence of Ja Morant, but outside of just the injuries that have taken the hit on the team. But I mean, like, look at them, they're 30th in offense, worst offense in the league, 18th in defense, which is low for them. They're 22nd in points per game, but then they're 5th in pace. So you're kind of like, they're trying to play quick. Is there maybe a thought that maybe they try to slow things down a bit? Is that an area that they can look at and try and work a bit harder and just try to get back to what made them great? Obviously, it helps when you have Ja Morant. That makes a big difference. But play a bit slower, get your defense. The defense has been really bad. It's really disappointing. Obviously, I know it's new fit and all, but you bring in Marcus Smart into that team. You still have Jaren Jackson Jr. there. Desmond Bane is a good defender. Like they shouldn't be this bad in defensive. They should be a team that are relying on defense and maybe losing games in the clutch. Maybe the other teams just have that little bit more on them offensively that they don't have now without Ja Morant. But instead, it's a complete opposite of that, and they're really getting bogged down. They've had a couple of bad losses, and yeah, it just gives you those weird vibes. Didn't think it was going to be this bad, and you're looking at it now. 0-6 start. Jazz gone for what, another 19 games. They could be out of playoff contention by the time Ja Morant comes back.
Yeah, and I have a major question on that, and I'll pose it now. I mean, this is my unserious question: is should the Grizzlies tank? Should the Grizzlies tank? And I mean, look at this. Like it's early on the season, but it's not. And there are a lot of close games in the NBA. There's a lot of teams that are very close to being undefeated. There are a lot of teams that are very close to being like 0-6, just like these are. But newsflash, they are second to last in score margin, so they're getting destroyed. They're scoring negative 9.8. They are last in the league in defending 3-point shots, and of course, like there's some variance there. You don't know about shooting luck, but they're allowing players to get to the free throw line constantly as a defense. That's something that they did not do before. They did not foul as much as they do now. They're 22nd in that ranking. Opponents are shooting at 41.4% from three, and you just can't survive that. My thing though, when you're talking about like speed, like they're not even like top 10 in fast break points, so they're trying to push the pace so that it's not efficient.
That's the worst part of it, yeah.
And Marcus Smart, that's your half court offense. You can't play in the half court right now. Everything's untenable. Like tell me what they should be doing in the half court besides running Desmond Bane off screens and pick and popping with Jaren Jackson Jr. Maybe that's it. Like allow Jaren Jackson Jr. to do more off ball. That's kind of what we talked about a bit, but it's really not looking like they don't have the spacing. They don't have the creation. They don't have, I mean, Marcus Smart is playing the worst basketball in a long time. And that's concerning for me. Like I was really hoping that he would be kind of a leader here and he'd be a little bit more, provide some more stability. I don't know if that sounds laughable to people who watch Marcus Smart for the Celtics in terms of his stability offensively, but he is a good playmaker, but there's no reason he should be averaging 5.5 assists to 4.2 turnovers. That's a very really ugly look for him. Mm-hmm. He's taking 7 threes a game. I don't know. I don't know in terms of the coaching point. I mean, Jenkins is just doing the best that he can, but Marcus Smart should not be taking 7 threes a game. It's a train wreck. So should the Grizzlies tank?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it feels like this the way they're going out at the moment, it kind of feels like they're just taking their medicine and like, okay, we'll just deal with this until we get Ja Morant back. And like, yeah, I mean, you look at it on one hand, you're like, well, the Lakers started 2-10 last year. They still made the playoffs, yeah, so it's not completely out of the realms. But you also say we're going to be without Ja until what is it, December, maybe even January. I'm not sure what way the way it breaks down, but how long it's going to take him to really get going again. They might be in a position, and looking around the league, there isn't that many teams that are going to be tanking. It's going to be between them and maybe a couple of teams in the East. I don't think any of the Western Conference teams are looking at tanking, at least until probably the turn of the year when things kind of flesh out a little bit more. But yeah, it might not be the craziest idea in the world. It's great for me to already go back on my take on them this much now. To go from number one seed.
This is a trap for me to get you to go all the way back.
Number one seed to tanking to try to get the number one pick next year. But yeah, it's sad to say, but maybe it's not the craziest idea in the world.
They're just not they need to make a trade here, and I think they lost Tyus Jones. They lost Dillon Brooks, Anthony Mello for not really making any deals. You expected Zaire Williams to get better. You expected, I mean, Brandon Clark's also not there too. I mean, there's a lot of things that will look better with health. There are a lot of things that will look better with health. John Conchar is not having like magic games. Luke Kennard won't shoot 13% from three all season long, but it's not a great start, and they're gonna have to crawl their way back up. The Memphis Grizzlies, though, on the other side of the coin, I think if they're in a play-in scenario, that's not gonna bother them. You know,
No, they could do
they're
they could
better.
do a Lakers job on it. Yeah.
They're way better with a chip on their shoulder. John Morant, this conversation sounds a lot different if they make a move for a center. If they find a way to get Clint Capella, they find a way to get him. They get a serious center involved here. They get some health back with Brandon Clark, and they get John Morant back, and Marcus Smart. You get a little bit regression to the mean. He's a better playmaker than this. Like this should look better. I don't want to have a crazy take here, but I think it just goes to show that John Morant really screwed them over. Like they're not, this would be a whole different thing. Hey man, hey John, we got it. We're good. We're fine. Just like last year, but no, this time it's looking pretty bad.
Yeah, at least Baines is doing his part, averaging 26 points per game. But obviously, I was looking at even making my notes obviously before last night's game and think, like looking over their next 5 games and thinking they've got to win. They get 4 wins here. They got to be 4-6 after this. They've already blown one of them by losing to the Blazers last night. Their next game is also against the Blazers. Then they face Miami, Utah, and the Clippers. And you're looking at that and saying, obviously now it's a 3 or 4. They got to win 3 or 4 though. 3 out of 4 of those games. Like they've got to start finding a way to win. And like the Blazers, they're gonna have up and down nights. This is a young team. This is a new look team. So they should be able to get there. Miami haven't had the greatest start to the year either. The Jazz again fairly up and down. Then maybe obviously the Clippers. They'll be looking at the James Harden Clippers then, but they really
They're
need
second
to.
in that rating. That's a good team.
They still need to get a couple of wins out of these few games, or else then you really start to look at it like if they end up being 0-10, then you're really like, okay, yeah, just scratch this season off and move on to the next.
Yeah, I mean, you have time. You have Bane long-term extension. You have Jaren Jackson Jr. You have John Morant. Like you have your core, right? Mm-hmm. And the point of getting a good pick, I don't even think would be to even use it necessarily. Like maybe you can get like a. I mean, is a Siakam deal there? I don't know.
Yeah,
is a Siakam deal there? They need someone else that can create offense. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a great secondary, tertiary option offensively with what he does from 3. But he's not advanced at any point this year. That's what we're gonna see. I think this is more experiment time, and I think that's fine. Like let's see some more Jake LaRavia out there. Let's see some more. I don't know. I need some Kenny Lofton Jr.
Kenny
minutes.
Lofton, baby.
Yeah, I need some Kenny Lofton Jr. minutes. Like, where are those at? I don't need that at the end of the 4th. I need that like in the second quarter, like right there. Let's see what he can do. They need to just test things out. It's not a tank; it's a test period, and we'll call it that.
Yeah. I think that's fair. So we flipped it on the Memphis. They went from being the 1 seed to the tank team. Okay, fine, just me.
Yeah.
All right, then let's finish it off. Let's get on to the really big news of the week. The Los Angeles Clippers have traded for James Harden, and I think this is a deal that could really go any which way for both teams. Obviously, the Clippers now they got Harden and Tucker. The 76ers ended up with 2 first-rounders, Covington, Batum, KJ Martin, Marcus Morris, 2 seconds, and a pick swap. I know people are trying to have a go at the 76ers. I think they've done really well out of this deal, to be totally honest.
In what way?
I think getting rid of Harden is important for them. They got back draft assets. They got back movable contracts, and they got back a couple of guys who know they're not going to be needle pushers for the team, but they're going to be able to deliver for the time that they remain in Philadelphia. They can be part of packages now. If they look to move for another star, they're in a very good position they're in a position where they have the assets to try and trade for another star to get alongside Embiid. They could look at moving towards a rebuild. Hopefully that's not the way it goes, but obviously let's hope Embiid ends up in New York. And they could also wait next year. They have max room. So I mean they're in a pretty good position. The options are open for Philly.
I think that's something that people are missing, is that this is not you're not comparing Harden the winning player. You're not comparing Harden, the guy who's helping you get to a championship, to Robert Covington, to Nick Batum, to Kenny Martin Jr. That's not the comparison you make. You're comparing him to getting 2 first-round picks and getting meaningful rotation players, but mostly expiring deals. And the ability to reset. You traded James Harden for the ability to reset and get another star. That's what this is about. It's not about those players. Those players don't matter. I mean, I think they will matter in terms of, they have a lot more defensive flexibility now. They can play very small, and that's not something the 76ers really can do, except for using Paul Reed. So, Paul Reed fans out there are weeping because this is a tough time for him. He's going to have to compete against Rocco. He's going to have to compete against Batum. And I think those are guys who are going to look a lot better alongside Joel Embiid. Kelly Oubre fans, tough time for you too. I don't think Kelly Oubre is going to be getting a lot of minutes out there. Once he starts dropping 30% field goal games, you're going to want to put Rocco out there. You're going to want to put even Kevin Martin Jr. Like there's more options at the wing in the big position, but this is all about the ability to reset. And one thing too is the faith in Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
Faith in his growth. Like, is he going to keep growing? I think that they've seen the potential there now that he's the primary playmaker, that he really can get downhill all game long and create from that position. Like he's a different player than Harden, but with the way that he's putting pressure on defenses, he's figuring out how to translate that into consistent playmaking for others. And that's going to continue to grow, I think. Joel Embiid.
Is he the fastest player in the league? He's got to be up there.
Speed
wise,
that is a great
electric.
question. Is he the quickest player in the league? I think floor to floor speed. I mean, all right, John Morant or Tyrese Maxey, who's
that'd be a good.
That's
race,
pretty close.
Yeah,
that's pretty close. We're gonna have to actually there's objective data on this. Speed, average speed per game. But I think when you look at the Clippers side, that's where things get really interesting. Does this raise their ceiling more than it lowers their floor? That's my question.
I mean, before any games have been played, before we've seen anything, I guess you have to say yes. But at the same time, you're kind of like, this is them really desperately going all in. They're taking a guy like Harden, which, don't get me wrong, is a player that they wanted and needed, but also a player no one else wanted, which is always an interesting thing, an interesting angle to look at it. He's going to provide them with that pick and roll option that they need. He's going to provide them with that scoring option, and hopefully that be the lead scorer when they want to rest like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which is why they went and got him. That was their main thinking behind it. But at the same time, you're kind of like, they've given up everything for that. They are in a position next year where I think George, Kawhi, and Harden are all up. Contracts are all up, so they'll have to make some new deals as they're looking to move into their brand new arena. I think they're going to want to have some stardom around that. But he gives them what they wanted, but at the same time, he's still James Harden. He's still going to be, always has the potential to be a detriment to your team rather than a big time plus. And like that comment that he made in the press conference, like 76ers may be playing the system. I am the system. Give it a rest. You're not a system anymore. What did the 76ers do? You were 21 points per game. You led the league in assists. You had a near career high from 3-point range. You had one of your more memorable playoff runs with those couple of games against Boston, that shot against Boston. So, I mean, like, it didn't work out too badly for him. It was just the fact that he wasn't Joel Embiid. He wasn't the be all and end all of the team and taking the most shots on the team. That was all that I saw of the leash. As much as I respect him questioning Doc Rivers' use of him and all that, but I think that was really just, I wanted to be the guy and I wasn't.
On the surface, I don't know. I didn't read it like that. I read it in the context of, the concerns that people are bringing about how he fits in to the system with the Clippers. And I think it's a fair point that, number one, why did the Clippers get him? I think all those points you brought up are the main reasons. It's all about star power. It's about raising your ceiling. It's about you're running out of time. You just have to make the biggest move possible. And there honestly wasn't anywhere that he was going to go. But when you look at their problems, I think the Clippers sometimes they run into issues in the half court. They run into issues when, they are trying to transition their offense between team basketball and pass it to Kawhi and hope he does something great in the mid-range and let Paul George cook on the perimeter. Like there's not a lot of connectivity there. There's not a lot of dynamic play. And maybe I think that the questions about how Harden fits is legitimate when you've seen how he was with Russ in the Rockets. You've seen, but then you've also seen how he was with the Nets, how he was with the 76ers, and he was always a plus. He always made those offenses better. And I think he is the system. Like, you put Harden on the floor and you put the ball in his hands, and he does create for others. And he does seek mismatches. He does find guys in their spots. He made Joel Embiid the MVP. Like Joel Embiid was the MVP not because of James Harden, but largely with his ability to get him in the right spots constantly. And if that's something that James Harden brings to the Clippers, I mean, that's important. They don't have a real playmaker like that. And Russ isn't really that in the traditional sense, at least in the half court. So I don't know. I didn't have a huge problem with it because I think there is an ounce of truth with it in terms of what he brings to the Clippers. But if he is talking about being the guy and the moment and the leading scorer, which everyone thought that was kind of the problem with him going to the Rockets, is that, all of a sudden Harden wants to be the guy again, then of course that's going to be a problem. So it depends who's reading the tea leaves. I'm reading a little bit differently than you, I guess, but I'm shocking myself that I think that this isn't going to work, because I think that the ceiling is not significantly higher than what, the third round.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think there's enough time.
Look at it this way: the powers that be, there was a vote or whatever, and they have a better percentage now to come out of the West than the Nuggets. Do you think that's the case?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I will not bet against the team that is like, no. You talk about it. Jokic is the best offensive system on the planet.
Okay.
And the Nuggets still play insane defense, and they still have Murray, they still have MPJ. It doesn't matter how many old stars you throw on a team. Like, they've got to figure things out on their own. I mean, we can look at it positively, though. I mean, do you feel? I mean, are there positive things with it? Like, I think that Zubac is such an underrated pick and roll guy. And who's running pick and roll with him? Nobody really. I mean, James Harden.
Pick and roll is huge for them.
Yeah, Zubac is going to look fantastic with Harden. And Harden's, the way he reads the floor, Paul George is going to have a ton of easy threes with him. Terrence Mann, he can play a little bit more to his role. I think that Harden will help a lot of these players play more to their natural position. I think maybe Kawhi Leonard takes a step back in terms of how much he gets the ball. Russell Westbrook, we'll see how that goes on the bench. I mean, that's going to be a whole charade. If Russ doesn't mind, being that energy guy off the bench, if Norman Powell can just like suck it up and like, hey, dude, you're not really going to be getting reps on ball really anymore. Bones goodbye. Bones is not going to see the floor when these guys are healthy. He's just not. If they can all accept that towards a goal moving forward to win the championship and stay together, and that's all going to be good and well because they have such great leaders in that locker room, then sure. But
yeah, and the big thing is that they're Harden finally, I guess, in the position where if he is going to flake in the playoffs again, maybe it won't matter once everyone's healthy, because you got to go Kawhi, then Paul George, then Harden, and if he's just being a playmaker, shooting well from three, and you still got Kawhi doing Kawhi things like that won't be as big of an issue there. So the positives are definitely there. I get it, but at the same time, with James Harden, it's kind of hard to believe that some more drama won't come out of this before too long. Let's see what it looks like when they're negotiating a contract next year. But at the same time, I think you're right. The Clippers had to go and make this deal. He provides something that they didn't have. So you have to just say kudos to the Clippers. They went all in. Let's see how it works from here. But on the Philly side, even this year, I just look at Philly and say Philly are going to be fine. Philly are going to be so fine because at the very minimum, they have a great head coach in Nick Nurse who will figure out enough for them to still be a very good regular season team. They're not going to take that massive drop off that I think people were thinking about because they knew they weren't going to get a star in return for Harden. And I even think that this year is a season to not panic for Philly. I don't think they obviously need to communicate with Joel, but I don't think they need to go and instantly make a move for a star when it's not desperately needed. I think this is a year to really see what sort of level Maxey can do for an entire year. I think they're going to be in the playoffs again. You look at how much they believe in him and how much they rely on Embiid, and you're kind of thinking of maybe the best thing that they could get into that team is a legit 3-and-D playmaker. Like that's kind of a bigger gap than maybe another star like a Levine or someone like that to come in Philly, because I think the scoring that Tyrese Maxey can provide is more than enough to be the number 2 to Joel Embiid. The biggest thing for Philly is having Joel Embiid actually healthy during the playoffs. There's always something wrong with him in the playoffs. He always picks up a knock during the playoffs, just before the playoffs. He's never healthy. The Philly are always in the playoffs. But the thing is, Joel Embiid is never, ever healthy when they get to the playoffs. That's the biggest thing about all of this. It's not having that other star with Embiid. It's Joel Embiid actually being healthy.
Yeah, and I think this will be an underrated thing about this move is if they're keeping all these guys, is their ability to play small will help them. And they did that with Tucker too, but they'll be able to do it even more now with now you got both Batum on the floor, you got both Robert Covington on the floor, and those guys can still play. They can play meaningful minutes, and they can help kind of take the pressure off of Embiid, to play defense all the time. And I still think they should make a move. And I think the Bulls would bite for a lucrative deal involving picks. If things continue to devolve in Chicago and they're allowed to reset, and management is allowed to reset and just, sell things off. I mean, maybe even DeRozan, honestly, like having a guy like DeRozan, a guy who can be a primary playmaker and can score, in a playoff setting where the floor shrinks and you got to slow things down. I'm not sure if Maxey is going to be able to do that consistently in the playoffs. That's one thing. I would have more faith in DeRozan being a secondary scorer than Maxey down the stretch in a 7 series, especially when you're facing the defenses of the East. The ability to get to the line all the time. If DeRozan can be had for a first round pick, would they do that? I think that the panic has to be there because Embiid knows that he could win, but he doesn't know if he can do it in Philly. You just lost Harden. You just don't know what's going to happen next year. You don't know where things can go, and things can go sour quick. I mean, maybe he picked up a couple clues from Harden. Hey, you want to go somewhere. I mean, Harden he just did a world tour. Like, he said he wanted to go somewhere. He went there. Every single team. Even he didn't even play like James Harden when he left the Houston Rockets. He hasn't played a single game like Houston, James Harden, and he still got to go wherever he wants. I mean, so the play is there if Embiid wants to do it, and that has to force their hand to really do something special with this team, or else why would he stay?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's communicate everything with Joel Embiid. If Joel Embiid says he wants to start, then go and get that star. Absolutely. I think if they can hold off and really see what Maxey is for a full year and see what he can do in a playoff setting, and then wait till next summer and really look to analyze things then, I don't think that'll be the worst decision in the world. But yeah, like you said, it is all about Joel Embiid. Whatever they have to do to make him happy, they absolutely should do that. I'm not saying that they shouldn't communicate with Embiid and just go their own way and let this season play out. They communicate with Joel Embiid like we saw Giannis do. He pushed the hand of the Milwaukee Bucks. They went out and got what they wanted. It's going to be like, you look at it and you're thinking star wise, you're looking at Siakam, Levine, and
yes.
Apparently they're monitoring Donovan Mitchell's situation in Cleveland too.
Cleveland wouldn't. It's
tough to say like who's going to be the next disgruntled star. Like the one always comes out, but at this moment you're kind of like, they're the ones. Mitchell's obviously a long shot. Levine's kind of the main one you're looking at. Outside of that, it's kind of tough to see where that disgruntled star is going to come from. But yet again, we say that probably every year, and one always seems to come about,
Yeah, and I think that you have to think about it, like Giannis got Dame. Like Giannis just got Dame. They've been competitive all these years. They just got Dame. Like they're making moves. The Boston Celtics were not satisfied being as good as they were, and they went out. They got Porzingis. Like front offices that are aggressive in the open market will get what they want. And Daryl Morey has always found a way, and I think that's where it lies. Is Daryl Morey you trust? Like he was able to get James Harden. He was able to figure out that Ben Simmons situation and make something out of nothing. And he managed to get something out of nothing with Harden, because really that guy was not going anywhere but the Clippers. So the fact that you got 2 first-round picks out of that situation, I mean, that matters. So stay tuned on that. I really have faith that they'll continue to be good with Maxey, but we'll try to make a deal this year. I don't think they're going to waste another year of Embiid, because you said he's not getting any healthier. That's not going to fix itself. That's always who he's going to be. So you need to give him some more help.
Yeah. So what do you say? You say win for both sides?
Win-win, or I think it's more likely a win. More likely a win for the 76ers. They got their hands clean. Then big stay tuned for the Clippers. Big stay tuned. I'm not making a call on that. That could be a big lose. We'll see.
Yeah. We won't like any hot takes on that one, but yeah, I think obviously very, very interesting. Always cool when a big trade goes down. Let's see how Harden fits out in LA. Let's see where the 76ers go from here. But when things do go down, when things do change, we'll be here to cover you for all that. But that's going to do it for today's episode. My thanks to Chris for joining me. Thank you all so much for listening. Remember, you like what you're hearing. We are everywhere at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.